Madame Malcolm was a squat, smiling witch dressed all in mauve. "Hogwarts, dear," she said, when Harry started to speak. Got the lot here. Another young man just getting fitted just now, in fact." In the back of the shop, a boy with a pale, pointed face was standing on a footstool, while a second witch pinned up his long black robes. Madame Malcolm stood Harry on the stool next to him, slipped a long robe over his head, and began to pin it to the right length. "Hello," said the boy. "Are you Hogwarts too?" "Yes," said Harry. "My father's next door buying my books and my mother's up the street looking at once," said the boy. He had a bored, drolling voice. "Then I'm going to drag them off to look at racing brooms. I don't see why first years can't have their own. I think I'll just bully father into getting me one and then I'll smuggle it in somehow." Harry was strongly reminded of Dudley. "Have you got your own racing broom?" the boy went on. "No," said Harry. "Play Quidditch at all?" "No," Harry said again, wondering what on earth Quidditch was. "I do," Father said. "Father said it's a crime if I'm not picked to play for my house, and I must say I agree. Know what house you'll be in yet?" "No," said Harry, feeling more stupid by the minute. "Well, no one really knows until they get there, do they? But I know I'll be in Slytherin. All our family has been. Imagine being in Hufflepuff. I think I'd leave, wouldn't you?" Said Harry, wishing he could have said something a bit more interesting. "I say, look at that man," said the boy suddenly, nodding towards the front window. Hagrid was standing there, grinning at Harry, pointing to two large ice creams to show that he couldn't come in. "That's Hagrid," said Harry, glad to know something that the boy didn't. "He works at Hogwarts." "Oh," said the boy, "I've heard of him. He's the servant, isn't he?" "He's the gamekeeper," said Harry. He was liking the boy less and less every second. "Yes, exactly. I've heard he's sort of savage. Lives in a hut in the school grounds, and every now and then he gets drunk and tries to do magic, but ends up setting fire to his bed." "I think he's brilliant," said Harry coldly. "Do you?" said the boy with a slight sneer. "Why is he with you? Where are your parents?" "They're dead," said Harry shortly. He didn't feel much like going into the matter with this boy. "Oh, sorry," said the other, not sounding sorry at all. "But they were. Our kind, weren't they? They were witch and wizard, if that's what you mean." "I really don't think they should let the other sort in, though, do you? They're just not the same, and they've not even been brought up to know our ways. Some of them have never even heard of Hogwarts until they get their letter. I mean, imagine. I think they should keep it just to old wizarding families. What's your name, by the way?" But before Harry could answer, Madame Malkin said, "That's you done, my dear," and Harry, not sorry for an excuse to stop talking to the boy, hopped down from the footstool. "Well, I'll see you at Hogwarts, I suppose," said the drawling boy. Harry was rather quiet when he ate his ice cream that Hagrid had just bought him, chocolate and raspberry with chopped nuts. "What's up?" said Hagrid. "Nothing," Harry lied. They stopped to buy parchment and quills. Harry chewed up a bit when he found a bottle of ink that changed colour as you wrote. When they'd left the shop, he said to Hagrid, "What's Quidditch?" "Blimey, Harry, I keep forgetting how little you know, not knowing about Quidditch." "Don't make me feel worse," said Harry. He told Hagrid about the pale boy in Madame Malkin's. "And he said that people from Muggle families shouldn't even be allowed in, and you're not from a Muggle family. If he'd have known who you were, he's grown up knowing your name if his parents are wizarding folk. You saw him in the Leaky Cauldron. Anyway, what does he know about it? Some of the best I ever saw. Kate were the first ones in magic in him. I mean, look at your mum. Look what she had for a sister." "So what is Quidditch?" "It's our sport, wizard sport. It's like football in the Muggle world. Everyone follows Quidditch. Played up in the air on broomsticks. There's 4 balls. It's sort of hard to explain the rules." "And what are Slytherin and Hufflepuff?" "Schoolhouses. There's 4 of them. Everyone says Hufflepuff are a lot of duffers, but I bet I'm in Hufflepuff," said Harry gloomily. "Better Hufflepuff than Slytherin," said Hagrid darkly. "There's not a single witch or wizard who went bad who wasn't in Slytherin. You know who was one. You know who was at Hogwarts?" "Years and years ago," said Hagrid. They bought Harry's school books in a shop called Flourish and Blots, where the shelves were stacked to the ceiling with books as large as paving stabs, bound in leather, books the size of postage stamps, covered in silk, books full of peculiar symbols and full of books that had nothing in them at all. Even Dudley, who'd never read a book in his life, would have wanted to drag his wild hands on something in here. Hagrid had to pull Harry away from curses and counter-curses, bewitch your friends and befuddle your enemies with the latest revenges, hair loss, jelly legs, tongue-tying, and much, much more. I was trying to find out how to curse Dudley. I'm not saying that's not a good idea, but you're not to use your magic in the Muggle world, except in special circumstances, said Hagrid. And anyway, you won't be able to work any of those out yet anyway. You've got to study before you get to that level. Hagrid wouldn't let Harry buy a solid gold cauldron either. It says pewter on your list. But they got a nice set of scales for weighing potion ingredients and a collapsible brass telescope. They visited the apothecary next, which was fascinating enough to make up for the weird smell. It smelled of bad eggs and rotted cabbages. Barrels of slimy stuff stood on the floor, jars of herbs, dried roots and bright powders lined the walls. Bundles of feathers, strings of fangs, and snarled claws hung from the ceiling. While Hagrid asked the man behind the counter for a supply of some basic potion ingredients for Harry, Harry himself examined silver unicorn hairs, 21 galleons for one, and tiny, minuscule, glittery black beetle eyes, 5 nuts per scoop. Outside the apothecary's, Hagrid checked Harry's list again. Just your one left. Oh yeah, and I still haven't got you a birthday present. Harry felt himself go red. You don't have to. I know I don't have to, said Hagrid. Tell you what, I'll get you an animal. Not a toad. Toads went out of date years ago. And not a cat, they make me sneeze. Tell you what, I'll get you an owl. Everyone loves an owl. Dead useful. Bring your post and stuff. 20 minutes later, they left Ilot's Emporium, which had been dark and full of rustling and flickering and bright-coloured jewel eyes. Harry now carried a large cage which held a beautiful snowy owl, fast asleep with her head under her wing. He couldn't stop stammering his thanks, sounding just like Professor Quirrell. Don't mention it, Hagrid said gruffly. Don't expect you've had many presents from the Dursleys. Just Ollivanders left now. Only place for wand, Ollivanders. You've got to get the very best wand. Magic wand. This was the bit Harry had waited for. The last shop was narrow and shabby. Peeling gold letters over the door read, Ollivanders, makers of fine wands since 382 BC. A single wand lay on a faded purple cushion in the dusty window. A tinkling bell rang somewhere in the depths of the shop as they stepped inside. Harry felt strangely as though he'd just entered a very strict library. He swallowed a lot of new questions which just occurred to him and looked instead at the thousands of narrow boxes piled neatly up to the ceiling. For some reason, the back of his neck prickled. The dust and silence in here seemed to tingle with some sort of magic. Good afternoon, said a soft voice. Harry jumped. Hagrid must have jumped too because there was a loud crunching noise and he got quickly off the spindly chair. An old man was standing before them, his pale eyes shining like moons through the gloom of the shop. Hello, said Harry awkwardly. Ah, yes, said the man. Yes, I thought I'd be seeing you soon, Harry Potter. It wasn't a question. You have your mother's eyes. It seemed only yesterday she was in here herself buying her first wand. 10 1/4 inches, long, swishy, made of willow, nice for charm work. Mr. Ollivander moved closer to Harry. Harry wished to know he would blink. Mr. Ollivander moved closer to Harry. Harry wished he would blink. Those silvery eyes were very creepy. Your father, on the other hand, favoured a mahogany wand. 11 inches, pliable, a little bit more power, excellent for transfiguration. Well, I say your father favoured it. It really is the one that chooses the wizard, of course. Mr. Ollivander was now so close that he and Harry were stood nose to nose. Harry could see himself reflected in those misty eyes. And that's where Mr. Ollivander touched the lightning scar on Harry's forehead with one of his long white fingers. I'm sorry to say that I sold the one that did it, he said softly. 13 1/2 inches, you. Powerful one, very powerful. And in the wrong hands. Well, if I'd have known what that one trouble would have done. I'm sorry to say I sold the one that did it, he said softly. 13 1/2 inches, you. Powerful one, very powerful. And in the wrong hands. Well, if I'd have known what that wand was going to go out into the world and do. He shook his head, and then, to Harry's relief, spotted Hagrid. Rubeus Hagrid, how nice to see you again. Oak, 16 inches, rather bendy, wasn't it? It was, sir, yes, said Hagrid. Good one, that one. But I suppose they snapped it in half when you got expelled, said Mr. Ollivander, suddenly stern. Yes, they did, yes, said Hagrid, shuffling his feet. I've still got the pieces, though, he added brightly. But you don't use them, said Mr. Ollivander sharply. Oh, no, sir, said Hagrid quickly. Harry noticed he gripped the pink umbrella very tightly as he spoke. Said Mr. Ollivander, giving Hagrid a long, piercing look. Well now, Mr. Potter, let's have a look. Which is your wand arm? He pulled a long tape measure out of his pocket. Well, I'm right-handed, said Harry. Hold out your arm, that's it. He measured Harry from shoulder to finger, then wrist to elbow, shoulder to floor, knee to armpit, and round his head. As he measured, he said, Every Ollivander wand has at its core a powerful magical substance, Mr. Potter. We use unicorn hairs, phoenix tail feathers, and the heartstrings of dragons. No two Ollivander wands are quite the same, just as no two unicorns, dragons, or phoenixes are quite the same. And of course, you will never get such good results with another wizard's wand.